it makes me think, I'll talk to this for a moment, because I actually wrote a piece recently, and it was inspired by a Denzel Washington. I know you've actually had some recent stories with him, right? But, and it was, I think it was back in 2016 where Denzel was almost berating the media a bit. And
he was 100%. I remember that. And the funny thing is, when I shot Denzel Washington a few months ago, he was berating me, because he was trying to put the onus on me to tell the truth of the story of what was going on. And he assumed, as people do when they see paparazzi photographers, that I wouldn't have, the wherewithal to actually research and find out what went on, that I wouldn't ask the questions of the police officers of what went on, that I would just assume it was Denzel Washington involved with some police officers, and there was there was some bad connotation to it. And I think that's the stigma that people think. Like I said, people think that paparazzi photographers are bottom dwellers. No, we are journalists, period. And I think what Denzel Washington was trying to stress, in his interview, and I believe it was with Australia, is that journalists have a responsibility to the truth.
Yes.
They have a responsibility to get the story right. They have responsibility to get their facts right. They have their responsibility to do their homework, to do their research, to know who they're asking questions of, and to know the questions to ask, and not just to get salacious questions or salacious answers or dealing gossip. There's got to be a higher value. I like Denzel Washington. I think he can be a bit high and mighty, but I do think that is the gist of what he was going for.
I agree, and that's what stood out, because it was literally, hey, there's been this race to be first, not to be truthful. It's exactly what you're saying. That was his berating for. Right. And I watched that, and I agree with that. But what I found interesting about that, though, is I thought there's a piece of that slant or story that's missing, because I get it, and I think anybody, as you're talking to yourself and people understand listening to you, it's about quality, journalists first, truth first, not the salacious gossip, right?
Right.
But there's a piece missing in the last few years, which is what? The end user, because nowadays it's not just journalists that are those aggregators. You mentioned their Facebook. Everybody in the world now can be an aggregator or a publisher of content, and they're not actually held to the same journalistic integrity or accountability as journalists actually are.
Exactly.
And I think that's part of the problem, is that everybody's trying to be first. Everybody's trying to smash out. This is no longer just about journalists. And I think that's what I found interesting about that clip from 2016. I agree 100%. But I think in order for that to happen, everybody needs to take on board that notion of.
Well, I think the problem that you have as well is all like people who, YouTubers, Instagrammers, TikTokers, they're being referred to as influencers now. And they're being referred to as influencers for a reason, because they are influencing people. They're some of the biggest stars on the internet now. But I think, and brands and companies and corporations realize that this is a powerful marketing tool to reach the masses, and millennials and Gen Zs, and the new generation of people coming, that to indoctrinate them, for lack of a better word, and change their perspective. Because like I said, they're not calling them, they don't really call them aggregators anymore, right? So they're calling them influencers, and to influence means you are changing the narrative, you're changing something, you're trying to persuade a narrative, a way of life, a point of view, and I find that very interesting, but I also find that very dangerous, because influence. The Kardashians, take for example, they get paid money to, show a can of orange juice on their Instagram, and they get paid thousands of dollars for that. But what's to regulate them when they advertise dietary supplements that don't work, or medical procedures that don't work, or trips on disreputable companies? I'm just using that as an example, but
I get it. That's exactly the point, is that everybody can now publish, everybody can put content out, but not everybody is held to the same journalistic integrity as
and they need to be.
Exactly, as journalists actually are. It's part of the challenge.